Welcome to our Expedia Cruises Thursday night travel talk. And tonight our special guest is Tom Steer from Holland America. For those of you who have not attended a Zoom meeting, everyone is muted. You do have the ability to put your video on and we'd love to see your faces. We don't care if you're in your pajamas or having your cup of coffee or glass of wine. In this day and age with COVID and we're so distant from each other, we'd love to see your faces. So if you feel comfortable, turn your camera on. If you do have any questions during the presentation, there is a chat feature and you can type your questions in the chat and we will answer them after the presentation. So my name is Lisa Antflick. I'm one of the consultants at Expedia Cruises, and tonight's travel talk is being hosted by the 6 Expedia Cruises locations in the Edmonton area. We are coming up to 19 months from the date that travel shut down. And if you're on this call, you probably love to travel, and I'm sure you're missing it. Travel fulfills us. That's why we do it. The good news is that cruising has begun. Ships started to sail in June. We now have had 3 months of ocean cruising in Alaska, Caribbean, and Europe. And we also have river cruises have started too. And I heard a statistic today that I loved. It was from Royal Caribbean that they've had 500,000 people sail and less than 115 cases of COVID, which I think is less than what we're having in Edmonton right now. The sailings have operated with the highest health protocols, and cruising by far will be one of the safest ways to travel. And by the end of September, we expect to have 50% of ships sailing. At Expedia Cruises, we have had people recently come back from their vacations. We've had people come back from the Caribbean and Alaska. They said it was absolutely fabulous. They loved being back on the ship and had missed it so much. I will say that travel is a little bit more complex now, and now more than ever, you need the professional advice of a travel consultant. Our consultants are here to help you navigate the new complexities of travel and make sure your vacation is safe and seamless. If you are ready to travel now, we are ready to help. If you're not completely ready to travel at this moment, that's fine, but it always is the right time to plan. Studies have shown that 40% of the pleasure of a cruise comes from planning it. Last year has been challenging, and sometimes what makes me smile and helps me get through the days is to think about where I want to go next. My bucket list has become a to-do list, and I can't wait to start traveling again. Time has passed, and like you, I have much to make up for. Whatever your dreams are at Expedia Cruises, our consultants can help them come true. We are committed to finding you the best value for your travel dollars. We are more than just cruises. Our name is Expedia Cruises, Air, Land, and Sea Vacations, and we can help you plan all the components of your vacations. Best of all, we are in your neighborhood, so you can shop local. So with that said, I'm now going to introduce our special guest, Tom Steer, who's coming to us from Holland America. And it looks like you are on an Alaska cruise, Tom. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't want to disappoint anyone, but actually this is actually a virtual background. I'm actually coming to you live from my basement in North Vancouver. Not quite as glamorous, but yeah, virtually it looks pretty good. We can hope and dream. So thank you for the lovely introduction there, Lisa. That's wonderful. Am I okay to go ahead and share my screen here?
Go right ahead, Tom.
Let me see if I can pull it up. Give me 2 seconds, everyone. Okay. Do I need to be given the, here we go. I've got it right here. Perfect. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, I think you can all see my screen now. Wonderful. Okay, well, thanks for joining, everyone. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to learn a little bit about the world of Holland America's exotic cruises. And when we talk about exotic, that can mean any far-flung destination. We're going to talk about a few this evening. I don't have 3 hours, unfortunately, to talk about all of them, but we're going to try and squeeze the most exciting in with some news about some new itineraries and some other exciting updates. As Lisa mentioned, my name's Tom, and I represent Holland America across Western Canada. And it's always a pleasure to meet everyone virtually. If we can't be together in person, virtual is the next best thing. So it's great to be here this evening. Before I get into all that great stuff, when it comes to the cruises themselves, and we talk about the itineraries and the experience of being on board, I would like to touch on something that is on everybody's mind, something that I'm sure you've all had questions about over the last few weeks and months. And that is, what are we doing when it comes to ships getting started again, ships restarting operations? Well, we're very busy working on that, 24 hours a day, working behind the scenes, working in lockstep with the CDC, the WHO, the CLEAR organization, and other authorities and maritime authorities. At this point, we have 2 ships that are already sailing, which is fantastic. This is such exciting news, especially after what we've all been through over the last year or so. It gives us, so much to look forward to, knowing 2 ships have already entered service for Holland America, and then over the next few months, we expect another 2 or 3, and our plan is by the end of spring to have the entire fleet operational. So we'll be cruising at full steam ahead. And no doubt you've had questions about what cruising is going to look like, what is going to change on board, how are things going to be different. Well, first off, I will say all this information is available on our website. There's a page that's dedicated to this. You'll find something called our Travel Well Health and Safety Guidelines. Now, these are ever changing as we update and we confirm new aspects of these protocols. One thing I would advise is do stay connected with your Expedia Cruises consultant, because they have the latest information, and they can let you know if this actually applies to your sailing that you're looking at, because what we have posted currently only applies to sailings that are departing up through this coming January. So if you're thinking about later on into 2022, summer 22, beyond even into 2023, we haven't announced those protocols and those guidelines. So if that applies to you, do wait a little bit to see what those protocols will look like. But these are great to check out if you just want to see what we've done when it comes to things like the ventilation on board. We've really done some fantastic upgrades. We can move all of the air around in any particular stateroom or public space every 5 minutes, replace all of the air. We've got that upgraded HVAC, HEPA filtration and UV filtration. So lots of developments, but there will be aspects of this that change, no doubt, as we get closer to your cruise. So keep connected with your Expedia Cruises consultant, and they will give you the latest information. So one other aspect of this I should mention is that if you are considering to cruise in the next 8 months or so, or 7 months, if you're looking to book something that does depart by April, end of April 2022, it's covered by something currently called our worry-free promise. Essentially, this means you can cancel up to 30 days prior, and you have the assurance of future cruise credit all the way up to 30 days prior. And even if you were to need to cancel within that 30-day window because of possibly a positive test situation or COVID-related situation, we have protections and assurances if you're in that situation. So this is some assurance if you are looking to book quite close in. I know the majority of you on the webinar this evening are looking that little bit further out, because there's so many exciting things that we have sailing, or so many exciting deployments, I should say, that we have for the summer 2022 and beyond. So let's dive right into that. Holland America itself is a fantastic cruise line. It's a cruise line that's very close to my heart. I've worked on board many cruise lines. I actually spent 6 years living and working on board Holland America ships. I've been based on land for the last 6 years or so. So I spent a lot of time working on board and living the Holland America life on board ships. So I really got to get a feel for Holland America through and through, and became such a huge fan. I even met my wife on board a Holland America line ship. We now travel with our children on Holland America ships. We actually call them the damn kids. It's a little bit more fitting. But it's an awesome cruise line. I know so many of you this evening are in fact Holland America mariners, you're Holland America cruisers. Some of you have cruised some on some occasions with Holland America, some of you quite regularly, some not at all. So to begin with, I'm going to try and cover all the bases to give you a little bit of a flavor of what Holland America is all about, give you a little taster of the experience. So this is really what it comes down to. We will always say that we're a cruise line for explorers, foodies, and music lovers. I'll touch on that in a little bit more detail in a second, because it's key, and the ship size as well. One thing we don't have are things like amusement park rides on our ships. That's not what we do. There's a market for those things. Those things are wonderful, but it's not what we do. There's a growing market of folks who have kind of been there, done that, looking for maybe more touches of luxury, more spacious areas, more space in the staterooms. There's also a growing market of folks who have only ever been on very small ships, and they want a little bit more room and a bit more variety and variation on board, but they don't want to go on those mega ships. That's where Holland America comes in. We're perfectly sized. So the experience really starts with the size. The size is key. It can never be underestimated when it comes to the experience. Now, we don't say we're mid-size. Sometimes you hear folks say, well, Holland America, they're those medium ships, size ships. Possibly that could be true, but the trouble is that word has almost been hijacked, for want of a better word, by lines that are in fact larger, who were once smaller, mid-size. Now they have 1,000 more guests than us, and so they still call themselves mid-size. So we're not that big. All of our ships are under 100,000 tons. Our average guest count is 2,000. You know, even our largest ship could fit 2.5 times over into those mega ships out there that you hear about. But it's not just the size, it's the look and the feel, that classic nautical line of a Holland America ship, the dark blue hull, the teak wraparound decks, the open bow that we open up for scenic cruising. Something I love to point out is this thing just here, the magradome in the top left corner. And it really comes into play when we're talking about some of the itineraries we're going to look at this evening. This is the sliding roof that we can close in inclement weather. So let's say we're crossing the Bering Sea, we're crossing over to Asia. There might be a few rainy days. That's what happens when you cruise all around the world. For most cruise lines and cruise ships out there, if it rains and you're up on the Lido deck, you have to go back down inside. With Holland America, we can just retract that roof, so that wonderful pool deck area is still a place that can be used and enjoyed, and it allows everyone to spread out. Everyone doesn't have to go down inside the ship and get crammed in. So lots of small features and touches like this really make Holland America what it is. Folks are coming to us from all areas of the cruise industry to come on cruise with Holland America. Anniversary couples, sisters, reunions, girls getaway, family groups, especially on the short cruises. We're not going to talk about that many short sailings this evening, but on the way, especially when it comes to Mexico, Caribbean, Alaska, Mediterranean, we'll have a lot of family groups on board. We've got an awesome kids area, Club Hal, but we won't have thousands, a couple of hundred at most. The longer cruises, it's far fewer, but we have it there when we have those family groups on board. So I mentioned explorers. Now, what I meant by this is the fact that we have a depth and breadth that isn't really seen kind of universally in the cruise industry. Next year is our 150th year. We have been doing this for a long time. It's a big birthday for us, so we're very excited about that. But that kind of tenure and that experience really comes into play with destinations. We have been tweaking itineraries for not just a few years, decade upon decade. We know how to deliver true destination experiences. We have relationships with ports and maritime authorities that go back many years. That's why we get top billing in many ports around the world. You'll see the Holland America ship docked in kind of prime spot. But when I talk about depth and breadth of itinerary, what I mean by that is we have a vast number of ports we visit and a large number of itineraries, a lot of variation when it comes to itineraries, which is different to what you often see out there in the cruise industry, which might be a cruise line with a few ships that just do long itineraries, hit a lot of ports, but there's not a number of options for itineraries. Or you see cruise lines with lots of itineraries, but they just hit the same ports. We're the best of both worlds. Same could be said when it comes to the food. We do occupy a sweet spot, to use a kind of a culinary analogy. The part that's different here, I mean, we've always been a cruise line for foodies. That's no secret. But I think what it is, we offer something that is just the perfect balance, where if you look out there in the industry and the kind of cruise world, you'll find very small ships that have maybe one dining room, the main dining room, and then perhaps a secondary alternate or casual option. The other end of the spectrum, you find mega ships that have one dining room where it's the one main dining room where it's the same menu every day. And if you don't want to eat in there, you have to pay for one of 12 different alternate dining venues. That's not what we do. We have a balance where we have the main dining room, the classic Holland America dining experience, and that's a different menu rotating every mealtime, every day, with locally sourced kind of menus that reflect the destination that we're traveling to. And we have those 3, 4, or 5 specialty venues if you want to try something different. So it's just a nice mix. And we don't kind of hitch our wagon to one celebrity chef. We don't just have a neon light above one restaurant with a celebrity chef's name, from the TV, to capture a bit of a buzz. Instead, we have 8 chefs that are each bring something to the table. Another culinary analogy, and that they're all in their own right, either Michelin star chefs, proprietors, TV chefs, authors, each bringing their own area of creativity, and that's what really keeps our menus exciting and different. And we take the food into the port. Well, we don't literally take it into the port. We take the experience into the port. This came from river cruising a few years back, probably 10 or so years ago, maybe longer. River cruising boomed. A lot of ocean kind of cruisers moved over to river, checked out the whole river cruising experience. They came back to ocean because obviously you can get, as you'll see tonight, get to more places when it comes to ocean cruising. But they shared with us their thoughts and feelings about how great it is to be able to go and break bread with locals, learn about locally sourced ingredients and how they're used in traditional recipes, in mom and pop restaurants. So that you'll see that comes into play very acutely with some of the itineraries we're going to look at this evening. And then music. When you're on board ship in the evenings, music is something that we do best. And this is something we took a big risk on a few years back. We turned the industry on its head, and it paid off. This was something that paid off, and it was our idea. Instead of just having cruise ship musicians who kind of go from lounge to lounge, bouncing around the ship, changing their outfit or their badge and their style of music depending where they're playing, it's the same faces all around the ship. We decided instead, let's have purpose-built venues for specific musicians and genres and bands and entertainers who are experts and so experienced in their dedicated field, and make it almost like a Broadway or West End kind of experience where you can go and check out a different musical performance every night. But we have them playing. There's usually 2, 3, or 4 of these all playing at the same time, or alternating during the evening. So you have BB King's Blues Club with the BB King's All Stars. They're playing everything that gets the crowd on their feet. So everything from Bruno Mars to Chuck Berry, Beyonce to Aretha, anything that kind of gets the blood pumping. Then Billboard on board. We moved away from those typical cruise ship tiny piano bars where everyone has to kind of huddle in there, or you have to get there super early and stake your claim with your drink to get a spot. We opened it up. We've got this wonderful open space, twice the fun, twice the sing-alongs, dueling pianos, just an awesome space. Lincoln Center, which is the classics performed, and classical fusions performed by a group of individuals, an ensemble who have come through Lincoln Center in New York. And that's what I always say about this is, for me, it's my favorite way to kickstart my evenings on board. So after coming back from shore, after maybe resting a little bit, maybe freshen up, change your tire, I like to grab a cocktail before dinner, head on down to Lincoln Center Stage, and just let their performances wash over you. It's almost meditative. It's incredible. And then we have Rolling Stone Rock Room as well. Classic 60s and 70s rock on some of our ships as well. I'll tell you about that in just a second. And then just before we look at the itineraries, the other part and parcel of the experience is the service level. All cruise lines are delivering great service. With Holland America, it really comes down to the crew themselves, the fantastic crew in the housekeeping department, the beverage department, culinary, and it's so great to see them back out there doing what they're doing. Back out there on ship, you know, winning hearts and minds, creating smiles every day. Our name even gets checked as a cruise line. We get mentioned outside of the hospitality industry as an exemplary kind of service provider in that respect. So, okay, let's talk about the fleet quickly. These are those ships that will go to the far corners of the earth and have been doing so for the last 150 years. We call them affectionately the damn ships, the damn fleet. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I do want to just let you know about a very special ship that's coming along this year. The Rotterdam, she becomes our new flagship. She has just been built. She's over there in Italy right now. She hasn't sailed her first itinerary yet, but she's complete. She's one of our new Pinnacle class ships, still under 100,000 tons. You know, a true Holland America ship through and through. And yeah, she's got a lot going on under the hood, but a classic Holland America look, feel, and you can catch her in the Caribbean this winter, and then Europe in the summer. That's really where the fun begins, when we go back to our spiritual home for our 150th year with our new flagship Rotterdam, the name of the very first ship to sail under the Holland America Line flag. So it's a big deal for us, and she's an incredible ship, and that's her finishing her sea trials. So we want to say a big welcome to the fleet to Rotterdam. For Holland America mariners, it is a special moment, and you can be part of one of those inaugural, or I should say premier season voyages in Europe. So let's talk about some of these itineraries. About 500 plus itineraries, 400 ports of call. I'm gonna hone in on a few. For those of you who joined us earlier this year for a Holland America session, we talked about sailings that were closer to home. We talked about Alaska. We talked about West Coast sailings and those convenient sailings very close to home. This evening, we're going to look further afield. As I mentioned, it's going to be exotic, what we call exotic sailings. It doesn't always mean you have to fly both ways. Sometimes you can actually cross the Pacific or cross the Atlantic on a ship to start that journey. But we're going to look at some various types. First of all, we're going to start with Asia, an incredible part of the world that I was lucky enough to explore with Holland America on the Staten Dam, not this current new Staten Dam, the previous Staten Dam, which was an incredible. The ship I actually met my wife on, funnily enough. I just mentioned that earlier. But it's a part of the world that we have been visiting for decades upon decade upon decade upon decade. This is part of our history. We've been going there for a long time, and that means, as I mentioned earlier, we have a know-how and the experience in these parts of the world that we've established. We know how to create the perfect itinerary, the perfect paced itinerary, and something that is key as well is the fact that we don't deploy ships for certain markets. You may have discovered this before. Cruise lines may have ships all around the world, but what you'll often find is a cruise line will make a decision and say, this ship is going to be our ship. We deploy it to the UK market for people in the UK, and the menus are going to be appropriate for people in the UK. The entertainment, the announcements, the same for Australia. We're going to send this ship to Australia. It's going to be our Australian market ship. The same for Asia. You get cruise lines who will deploy a ship for the Asia market. So again, wherever these ships are being deployed, the menus are adjusted for that local market, the entertainment, right down to the programming and announcements. We don't do that. All of our ships are for the North American cruiser, the North American mindset. We may have folks coming to join us from all over the world. We have that wonderful international feel, but the programming, everything throughout the day, throughout the experience is for the North American mindset. So we're sailing in Asia, but it's for the North American cruiser. So Asia, we've been there for many years, cruising for many years. As I mentioned, I mean, back when, you know, cruising really started to become a thing, you know, picking up speed in the 80s and then into the 90s. The Holland America already were deploying ships in this region of the world, where other cruise lines were still, you know, going around in the Caribbean and Mexico. We were already there, already established. So I'm actually going to look at not just Asia, a little bit of Australia and New Zealand. And the season I'm going to look into, or going to share with you, is not this coming season. We're going to look further ahead. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of you are thinking further out. Maybe it's a little bit too close in to do something this winter. Plus, we don't have Asia deployments right now, Australia deployments this winter. We are going back there next winter. So let's look at Asia first of all. These are two of the classic itineraries. Now, if you speak with your Expedia Cruises consultant, or you were to visit our website, you will see probably about 20 or so different 14-day itineraries. There are quite, I'm not going to show you all of them. I appreciate your time, and I don't want to just show you pages and pages of itineraries. That wouldn't be useful. I'm going to show you a couple of the classics. Our Asia season really comes down to two core itineraries that have kind of a variation. So on the left-hand side, you have the Hong Kong Singapore. This one is that as well, that cruise that will include the overnight in Bangkok. It will include Ho Chi Minh City for the short excursions to the Suchi tunnels. This is the cruise that finishes in Singapore. Many of these will include Malaysia. There's Taiwan. There's a variation. So you may see that Hong Kong Singapore itinerary, but you're going to get the variation in the itinerary itself, some with overnight stays in different ports. Then you have the northern kind of section, which is Hong Kong, Yokohama for Tokyo. So this will generally include a little bit of the Philippines, Taiwan. Taiwan. This will also include South Korea in many cases. So depending on the date, you will see different variations of this. So that's kind of the starting point. And these can be combined. I'll show you how these combinations work in a little while. But there are other variations that are quite interesting, and that is an option to cruise round trip. This is one of my favorites on the left-hand side, cruise round trip from Yokohama. This is a real deep dive. If you really want to have that full Japan experience, this is the one for you. Because when it comes to cruising in Asia, everyone kind of has a different idea of what that is to them. There's so many different areas to be discovered, but this is if you're looking for that deep dive in Japan, with a little bit of Vladivostok as well, I should say. And Vladivostok, while we go there, it's an incredible place. The Soviet architecture. It's actually where the Trans-Siberian Railway ends, the other side of Russia. So a pretty cool spot. Nagasaki, which is a very poignant place. That's where the Peace Park is, where the bomb was dropped in World War II, of course. Osaka is a key port. Now that's a key port for Kyoto. Kyoto for many it's kind of the quintessential Japan. It has Japan's kind of those classic temples and shrines. All of the best of kind of the quintessential history of Japan is Kyoto. The geishas in the streets. In the spring, the cherry blossom festival. You can also get to Nara. Nara is a beautiful place. The oldest temple in Japan, and the town has more deer than people. Very, very peaceful spots. Some real variety there. You've also got in this particular sailing Amore, which is the town that gave Dean Martin inspiration for that song. You may be familiar with. You know the one. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's Amore. You know the one, right? That's as far as I know. That's where I believe he got the inspiration for that. But I promise I won't sing again. The one in the middle is one I haven't done myself that I really would like to do on a cruise. I've only touched on some Indonesia, but this is the deep dive of Indonesia. Indonesia it's 17,000 islands. That's not 1,700. 17,000 islands. the sheer kind of variety of flora and fauna is mind-boggling. So if you love exploring nature, that lush jungle, the ecological wonders, it's for you. The historical, ancient history, languages, on all those fronts, it's a UNESCO. Yeah, there are countless UNESCO World Heritage Sites, as there are in many of these spots. Some huge cities as well. It's kind of that mix of incredibly dense populaces, and then those incredible spots where you can have those serene moments, and then overnight in Bali as well. So that's round trip Singapore. And then I do want to mention this one on the right hand side as well, because this is Seattle Trans-Pacific. You can take this in September when we take our ships over to Asia, or you can take it in the spring when we bring our ships back over to the West Coast for the Alaska season. But it's not just the 14-day itself. I mentioned crossing the Bering Sea earlier. This is how you do it. You cross the international date line, so you live the same day twice, or if you take it the other way, you lose a day, which is pretty cool. But this is something that I always recommend you take as part of what we call a collector's voyage. So to do this, reach out to your Expedia Cruises consultant. They'll let you know what this is all about. A collector's voyage is basically when two cruises are put together. They can do it in a flash, in their system. They put them together for you, and when they do that, you get approximately a 10% price break. Seattle to Yokohama now becomes 28 days, and now you're getting that deep dive of Japan that I just went through in combination with the Trans-Pacific. It's a true kind of mariners, seafarers experience to cross the Pacific. It is it's something that really speaks to your heart and soul, and then to arrive and then have that experience in Japan, or do it in reverse, touching on Kodiak Islands as well, which is a remarkable place. So do speak with your Expedia Cruises consultant about these. And then those two at the beginning I showed you, kind of the northern leg, that is kind of Hong Kong up there, and Shanghai as well, up through into Japan and South Korea, or the leg that goes down into Singapore. That can be combined to make 28 days. So if you really want to check Asia off of your bucket list and get it done, these are two great ways to do it, going kind of more in depth. And I must just mention this, because I did show you in the beginning, we have ships down there in Australia and New Zealand. There are two quintessential ways to do this. That will be Sydney, Auckland, or the reverse, or do the full circumnavigation. This one on the left-hand side is what you'll find the most frequently occurring. We do this throughout the season. I've just picked one example here, but you get the big cities. You get Sydney. You can fly in early, spend time in Sydney, Melbourne, a bit of Tasmania, meet the Tasmanian devils, cross the Tasmanian Sea, Milford Sound, which is scenic cruising. If you love Alaska or the Norwegian Fjords, New Zealand is incredible. Milford Sound is truly beautiful, and there's so much variety in such a kind of in such a small area. Dunedin has got this kind of Scottish heritage that really shines through. Napier is a really interesting spot because the entire town was leveled by an earthquake in the 1930s, which meant that it had to be rebuilt, and it was rebuilt in the style of the time, architectural style of the time, which was Art Deco. So the entire town is a living, breathing Art Deco museum. Even the locals keep cars from that period. So yeah, that's a really cool place. And then as you get up into the Bay of Plenty and then Tauranga, those northern reaches, that's where you find all the geothermal wonders, the spouting geysers, that type of thing. So that's that cruise in reverse, either way, 14 days. That's the classic Australia, New Zealand cruise for us, mainly New Zealand. On the right-hand side, this is something special. This cruise books up very quickly, only happens once. This is 35 days, round trip Sydney, the Australia circumnavigation. You get the Northern Territories up through the Barrier Reef, scenic cruising through the Barrier Reef, stops in Airlie Beach, Cairns as well. As we come around, before we come back around down the west, you touch on Indonesia, Komodo Island, where you can get up close and personal with the Komodo dragons. You can also do that on one of those Indonesia cruises that I just showed you. But then as we come around the west coast, that they're parts of Australia you don't normally get to reach on a cruise or a land package, incredibly beautiful, ecologically astounding, lots of overnight stays. Whenever you see that half moon, half sun symbol, that means you stay overnight, so you get 2 days. So if you're looking now to catch up on your cruising because you have missed out on so many cruises and you want to do something longer that gives you more, this is the kind of cruise you need to look at. But with these cruises, you do need to book ahead, book early, because the longer the cruise, the fewer times it occurs, the quicker it sells out. And all of the Expedia Cruises consultants can attest to that. Now, I'm going to touch on Europe here, because for some of us, Europe doesn't seem that exotic or far and flung. But there are some key itineraries here I just want to share with you to show you the kind of in-depth, off the beaten track side of Europe that that really does come in under the kind of the umbrella or the wheelhouse of those folks who like to cruise exotic. And we see that in the loyalty and the repeat element of cruising. Folks who will cruise Asia, when they do Europe, they'll do certain type of cruise in Europe. So we kind of get a sense for what a certain type of cruiser enjoys. So when we're in Europe, we're going back to our spiritual homeland. We're not a European cruise line just operating in Europe, welcoming guests from Europe. We're not a North America cruise line going over to Europe trying to play in their backyard. We're both. We have the heart and soul and authenticity because of our European heritage, but we're headquartered in the US these days, so we have the North American mindset, like I mentioned earlier. So it's a perfect product for authenticity and assurance in that way. It's like being shown around a new place by a friend who's moved to that city, who you feel comfortable with, and they're showing you around, giving you the inside track. That's what we do. So many cool ports, so many cool areas in Europe to discover. These are some of those that kind of jump out at me right here. Bruges, for a start. You'll find this on some transatlantics, which are really fun, and you can build out into longer sailings. We don't often hit it. It's not on every sailing, but it's an incredible place. Just strolling those canals, the architecture, the smell of the fresh Belgian chocolate, the Moulay frites, the Belgian Trappist beer. It's just a feast for the senses. You'll find that on a lot of those transatlantics. As we get further up into the Norwegian fjords or up into the Northern Isles, you'll hit Bergen or Iceland for the Blue Lagoon. And these will be covered by those sailings that are on the brand new ship Rotterdam. I mentioned that new ship Rotterdam. She doesn't just go into a cruise cycle of one cruise and then repeat. She moves around like a rock star all over Europe. So you can combine 14 days to the Northern Isles with 14 days to the Norwegian fjords, make 28 days, 21 days, all these different combinations. Your Expedia Cruises consultant can help you with that. If you do the Northern Isles here, you don't just get the fjords, Iceland, the Shetland Islands, you also get Edinburgh during the Edinburgh Festival on many of these. And that means you can do our highest rated shore excursion. And that is going to the Royal Military Tattoo in the grounds of Edinburgh Castle with all the pomp and ceremony and fireworks, the lights. It's a spine-tingling experience. It's our #1 rated shore excursion. It always sells out. So that's why you have to book things like this early. Well, like I mentioned, Norwegian fjords, we go even further around the North Cape. Our ships are permitted in certain areas of the fjords where other cruise lines are not, for environmental reasons. So you can get more bang for your buck in that way with Holland. And then the Baltic, that's kind of the classic starting point for many. I'm sure many of you have been to the Baltic. I'm not going to go in depth here on that. Obviously, you get those 2 days in St. Petersburg for the Church of the Spilled Blood, St. Catherine's Palace, the Hermitage, these kind of things, and all the other aspects of the Baltic. But you can combine it again to make, this is an example of a 21-day sailing. So this is where that kind of exotic, far-flung feel comes in, because you're not just hopping over to Europe for a quick experience, you're going over, and then you're really getting that in-depth experience. And this is that 150th anniversary cruise I mentioned earlier, where we're replicating the very first sailing that we ever made 150 years ago, to the very day, the same length, just 7 ship incarnations later. Rotterdam 1, now Rotterdam #7. That's going to be a fun experience. Again, can be combined with something a bit longer, with the previous cruise to make something longer. This is really what I want to touch on, and that is that the Volendam is our new kind of, well, she's not our new ship, but she's the new smallest ship, as in she is now one of two ships that are unique unto themselves. They're smaller than other ships in the fleet, and they will be doing cruises in Europe that go off the beaten track. We call it voyages of distinction. So she'll sail into Bordeaux, she'll sail up the Gironde estuary into Bordeaux, where you can see the vineyards as you cruise in. You can sip some Bordeaux while looking out at the vineyards you were walking in that day. She'll cruise the Scheldt River. She'll drop in Zeebrugge for Bruges, like I just mentioned. She'll go all the way around the British Isles. She'll dock in Dublin. I'm not sure if I told you this before, but Dublin is the largest city in the world. It's the biggest city in the world because it keeps doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling. Yeah, okay, you get the idea. And this on the left-hand side, the River Explorer. This again is giving kind of a little bit of river cruise experience, but we're ocean cruise. So you don't get that with river cruise. You don't get river cruises that give you ocean. We give you ocean and river on something like this with a small ship like Volendam. I should have taken this slide out. This one on the left-hand side is fully booked. I'm sorry. Look out for this in 2023. This is like that Australia circumnavigation. They sell out quickly when they're longer and they only happen once. The round trip Boston cruise over to Rotterdam and back, they book up quickly and they sell out. So you'd have to wait for 23 for that one. If that's something you're interested in, let your Expedia Cruises consultant know, and they can help you kind of get a placeholder for that round trip round trip Boston over to Europe and back when it comes out the following year for 2023, which should be in the next month or so. Okay, moving, but the one on the right is available. If you just want to go one way, New Amsterdam is doing that. It's a very cool sailing. When you cruise the northern route, for those folks who love to do these longer exotic sailings, transatlantics, trans-Pacifics, this one is unique because it doesn't feel like you're on a transatlantic. There's barely more than one sea day in a row. You have a day at sea, Iceland, day at sea, Greenland, day at sea, Newfoundland, before coming down into Halifax. So it doesn't feel like a regular transatlantic. Okay, quickly popping down to the Mediterranean. This is a key area for us. And what I want to highlight here is something in particular. A lot of these ports you've probably been to, classic ports. The Mediterranean is like that kind of onion kind of analogy where you just peel the layers. It keeps presenting more and presenting you something new every time you go back. That's how it is for me. The Mediterranean is my favorite place to cruise. You can go back time and time again and visit some old favorites and get some new experiences. But I want to tell you about the fact Istanbul is back on our itineraries. It's an area we haven't visited in about 11 years. No cruise lines have, Western cruise lines that is, and it's open. That area where we're talking about Asia, but this is where Asia meets Europe, where the Bosphorus is straddled and East meets West, and it is a city that marvels, and it gives a whole new perspective by night as well as by day. We give you 2 days there, an overnight stay, and there's just so much to explore, and you will find that on some of these Mediterranean sailings. Firstly, something that's key is Amsterdam is sailing the Holy Lands down to Haifa for Nazareth and Ashdod for Jerusalem. Also, this cruise will include Cyprus, that's round trip Venice. And it's the first time we've had one of our Vista class ships sail this. A Vista class ship is a ship that has 80% balconies. Before that, it was only on small ships and they didn't have that many balconies. So it was hard to get a balcony room if that's what you were looking for. You had to pay for a suite. Now, 80% of the rooms are balcony accommodation, so lots of veranda staterooms. And that, by the way, it jogs my memory, that's what's happening in Asia. Those ships I showed you in Asia, Noordam and Westerdam, they're Vista class ships too. So for the first time in Asia, you're going to get those balconies for really economical rates compared to what you would have had to pay a few years ago. So that's happening in the Mediterranean. And then, yeah, this is that Istanbul sailing. 2 nights in Istanbul, 2 nights in, 2 days in Istanbul, 1 night, I should say. Same in Venice at the beginning of the cruise. There's an Eastern Mediterranean, there's a Western Mediterranean, kind of glitzy, kind of French Riviera and Italian Riviera. And you can combine that with this Greek Isles and Istanbul sailing to make something like this. That is kind of the quintessential Mediterranean. And again, the same with that smaller ship, Volendam. She will be the first of our fleet to get back to Egypt. So when we talk about North Africa, experiences that you wouldn't have been able to have on a cruise ship in the last, again, 10 years or so, We're now visiting Egypt again for the pyramids of Giza tours in September on the Volendam, September 2022. So really exciting stuff. You can see from the itineraries, she mixes it up, does it very differently when it comes to the Mediterranean. Just a few examples. There's lots more sailings that are available, but these are some examples. Okay, I'm going to spin the globe. Sorry, excuse me, put my teeth back in. I'm going to spin the globe, and we're going to look at South America and Antarctica. This is a part of the world that I have had some kind of very spine-tingling experiences in, and some moments I'll never forget. This is all on the Rotterdam, that ship that is in Europe in the summer. She's over in South America in the winter, and this is what one of our classic South America cruises looks like. It can go 14 days one way or 14 days in the reverse. So it's really a combination of culture, ecology, and just sheer scenery, just the amazing scenic cruising you can experience here. And the season is essentially December through March. So all of these sailings will either begin or end in Santiago or Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is just an incredible place to sail from. We spend an overnight stay there. So you arrive at the ship and the ship doesn't leave yet. You get a whole day. So it's almost like having a hotel. So in that time, you can visit La Boca districts and watch them doing the tango in the street. You can go and experience, full Argentinian steakhouse, Argentinian wine, Argentinian steak while you're watching this tango show. You can visit Iguazu Falls. You can do all that before the ship even leaves. They also visit the Falkland Islands. You'll see here the Falkland Islands on these itineraries. Going back a bit too far. The Falkland Islands is where you'll see a number of different penguin species. This is really where penguins play a big part here. So if you love your penguins, you're going to see and learn about all sorts of different types of penguins, get up close and personal. But what makes the Falkland Islands also unique is not just the fact that there are penguin colonies there, it's the fact that it feels like you're going to England from days gone by. It's like visiting England in the 1950s. So you can go for fish and chips, stop for a pint in the pub on your way home from a penguin colony. It's truly bizarre in that way, but lots of fun, and it's just one part of the overall itinerary. But the Chilean fjords, Tierra del Fuego, Patagonia, and all of those channels, the Coban Channel, the Beagle Channel, the Straits of Magellan, you're following in the footsteps of those explorers, and just the incredible scenery, the dramatic inlets, the fjords, the rugged mountains. As we get north, it's where you start to kind of connect with the Andes and Glacier Alley. It's if you've experienced scenic cruising in Norway or Alaska, you'll be blown away by South America. Along that coast of the Chilean fjords, there's such a rich confluence of mineral-rich water. You get incredible sea life. You get humpback whales. You've got the penguin rookeries already. Bird life, aquatic life. It's for folks who are there to have wildlife encounters, it is one of the top itineraries. And then you also have more penguin colony opportunities to visit and get up close and personal in either Punta Arenas or Ushuaia. Now, they both vie for the southernmost city in the world. Depends if you talk to a Chilean or Argentinian, they'll give you a different answer. But they're both the southernmost cities in that respect, and penguins galore. But then if you want to step things up a gear and really take it to the next level, for an extra 6 days, you can have the full Antarctica experience. So I must let you know up front, this isn't docking. We don't go ashore in Antarctica, but I've been blessed and fortunate enough to do this 3 times myself, and it feels like you can almost reach out and touch these icebergs. Some are as big as aircraft hangars, and the light changes throughout the day, just the ever-changing light. And I've seen penguins floating on sheets of ice past the ship. They don't even know the ship's there. We're going so slow and so quiet. And then all of a sudden they'll look up, see the ship, and slide over into the water in surprise. It's just a feast for the senses around the clock, considering it doesn't get dark and practically the sun barely dips beneath the horizon when we're there at that time of year. There's just something to see all day long. The colors change around the clock, and we give you 4 days of scenic cruising experience. Now, when you'll see on the itinerary, it just says Antarctica scenic cruising experience, almost as if it's a TBA or TBD. It kind of is. When we get down there, the captain, the ice pilot, our exploration central team, our shore excursion team, they all decide based on the conditions where we should explore. And once you've crossed the Drake Passage or the Drake Lake, and if you're wondering how I've always, from my experience, it was calm once, it was okay the next time, then quite bumpy the third time. And that's generally how I've always had it explained to me, that 60% of the time it's kind of normal seas, 20% of the time it's like a lake, and the other 20% of the time batten down the hatches, but nothing out of the ordinary, nothing more than you might experience on a particularly eventful day in the Caribbean or Alaska or something like that. But once you get across into that Antarctic area, there's kind of an area of protection. We're in those waters close to the archipelago. So what we're doing when we're moving around for weather is not avoiding bad weather. We're looking for the best opportunities for wildlife and ice. And these pictures I'm sharing with you were all taken either by myself or my colleagues or crew members on board, just to give you an example of what it's like spending those 4 days down there. Anyone who comes back from a South America cruise will always say it's the best cruise experience they've ever had. So if you haven't done it, it's truly bucket list. We only have 2 sailings within the season because it's such a narrow window of weather. So I highly encourage you, if that's something you're thinking about doing, you haven't done it before, go for it. Now's the time. And then, of course, you've got the Amazon. This is the other aspect of South America, round trip Fort Lauderdale. So a little bit more convenient in terms of domestic flights, but we'll go all the way down to Manaus. You can explore those flooded forests and tributaries and those cultures, and really get that kind of full mix, but also the convenience of having the ship as well. So that only happens once, November 19th. So that's South America for you. And I don't want you to forget that there are many, as I mentioned at the beginning, Vancouver options to go further afield. Cruising out of Vancouver doesn't just mean Alaska or a coastal. There are ways to get a taste of the exotic from Vancouver. We're very fortunate in Western Canada to have this incredible gateway, this incredible cruise hub. And this is how you sail from Vancouver to Hawaii. We've got 3 of these this coming spring, the following fall, the following spring. You can sail from Vancouver, finishing in San Diego, all the way around down the South Pacific, a real deep exploration of the South Pacific. That's a really cool itinerary. And if you're looking to make up on lost time, 50 days in the South Pacific, what a way to do it. The Panama Canal, either going through the canal westbound or eastbound Fort Lauderdale to Vancouver, we have those. And if you want to do Alaska, but you don't want to just do 7 days, because if you're on this webinar this evening, the chances are you like to cruise longer. There are 2 Alaska cruises that are 14 days from Vancouver next September. Hop on the ship up to Kodiak Island, all the way down Cook's Inlet into Anchorage itself. Not just Whittier or Seward for Anchorage, docking all the way downtown in Anchorage. So some pretty interesting experiences to be had that you wouldn't normally have on an Alaska cruise. So in closing, to kind of wrap things up, there are some great opportunities and great offers that you can take advantage of. First and foremostly, reach out to your Expedia Cruises team, your Expedia Cruises consultant. If you don't already have a Expedia Cruises consultant you're working with, just call the center, drop them a line, send them an email. They'll put you in touch with a fantastic expert, Expedia Cruises consultant, and they'll be able to tell you about some of these deals we have. So what we have now is a way you can have the base pricing, if you like. You can just take the regular cruise fare, often with extras from Expedia Cruises. I'll touch on that in just a second, but then you have the opportunity to have it all. And what we mean by that is when you have it all, you add basically an increase of $45 US per person per day to $56 per person per day in Canadian dollars, to get at half price what you would pay for them on board. Shore excursion discounts, the drink package, additional dining, specialty dining, and Wi-Fi. Depending on the length of the cruise, you'll get different amounts of short excursions. For a lot of these cruises we've talked about, you'll get at least 2 or 3 short excursions, complimentary up to $100 value for each excursion. You'll get 2 or 3 extra dining, specialty dining nights. You get the signature beverage package. It covers 90% of the drinks on the menu, the Wi-Fi surf package. So that's your option to have that included. Speak to the team. And in addition to that, this evening, if you're watching, your Expedia Cruises team, your Expedia Cruises consultant has an exclusive offer for you above and beyond this, just for Holland America, basically for the next 5 weeks, from tomorrow through to the end of October. Additional shipboard credits. They range from $35 to $150, depending on the length of the cruise and the type of room you're in. But that's just additional spending money on board that we'll give you just for you watching this evening. You're going to get that. And it combines with those have it all package benefits that I mentioned. And it also combines with Expedia exclusive stateroom benefits, Expedia Cruises benefits. And what I mean by this is, if you're not familiar with this, Expedia Cruises is a powerful travel organization, and they, through their network, work with us, Holland America, and other travel suppliers and cruise suppliers. And because they work in volume, we pass on to them benefits, in many cases lower rates and extra amenities to pass directly on to you. So that's why you'll always get a better deal working with your Expedia Cruises center rather than compared to working with Holland America. If you came to Holland America directly, you wouldn't be able to get the deals you could get with Expedia Cruises. So that's why you should always be working with them, and that's coming from someone who works for Holland America. So that's why you should always be working with them. And in addition to that, it's their expertise. The team, the Expedia Cruises consultants are experts. They know their onions when it comes to all these destinations, when it comes to every ship, every new rule, regulations, requirements, which is key. That cannot be overstated how important that is in this day and age. Right now, to have all your ducks in a line, all your ducks in a row before you depart. They're up to date with all the protocols, what you need to have. So working with them is essential, and they have that expertise, and they are there for you. We've seen travel can be disrupted even in the best of times, and it's just priceless to have that communication with someone who is ultimately in your community, who's just a phone call away or an email away. Wherever you are in the world, whatever's happened, they're right there. They can take care of it. They've got the resources. They're up to date. They have the expertise and the deals. So that's why they're just great to work with. So that's why you should definitely be working with Expedia Cruises. I think that is my entire deck I have. Hopefully you managed to stick with me. I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to go ahead and close down my screen here. Lisa, do we have any questions that came up?
We do. And I just want to share one thing. When you were showing Antarctica, I had some clients that came back that I think described it better than I've ever heard. And they said, Antarctica is Alaska on steroids.
Yes. Yep, I've heard that before, completely.
Yeah.
You have to see it to believe it.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Fabulous. I mean, I'm sure everybody else, like, I'm ready to get my suitcase out. I'm ready to start packing, and I'm ready to start planning for the future. And I loved what you talked about in terms of the longer cruises. We really, all of us, have so much to make up for. And I love your voyages that you can put together. So, you know, if you're going to spend the money for airfare, don't do 7 days, do 14 days, do 28 days, do 50 days. I loved, you know, for anybody who doesn't like to fly, the options of those longer sailings from Vancouver are spectacular as well. So that said, we do have some questions. Question about the policy regarding single occupancy. Is it just double the price on board?
Good question. Yes, it is. At this time, it is. So the single supplement is it's 100%. So it's yeah, whichever category you're booked into, it will be the same base fare again. You're only going to pay the taxes, fees, and port charges once. So yes, essentially that will be the case. However, on our Pinnacle class ship, so that's Rotterdam, the new ship Rotterdam, New Statendam, she sails in Canada, New England, and Northern Europe, and then Koningsdam, she sails Alaska in the winter, Alaska in the summer, Mexico in the winter. Those Pinnacle class ships, there are 3 new Pinnacle class ships, they have single occupancy staterooms in the ocean view category. They're called 00, like James Bond, 00 category rooms. And these are the best deal if you're a solo traveler, or if you're with a group of other folks, but you're booking that room on your own. These are great value if you're the type of cruiser who needs to have a view, who needs a window, because they do price up way better than any other ocean view room that you'd have to pay double occupancy single supplement rate for. However, if price is the number one factor, it's still more economical to book the lowest category interior room without a window and just book that at the regular single occupancy rate, if you catch my drift. So there are rooms for those single occupancy solo travelers, but only in the ocean view category on some ships.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I think people really want to know about flexibility, and you did talk about the worry-free deposits. Are they refundable?
Yep, all of our deposits there. We do have, and this is again something I recommend. If whoever asked this question, you do talk with your Expedia Cruises consultant about, but our regular deposits, which are available on all sailings that are outside of the final payment period. So that will cover pretty much in 2022, everything 2022 and beyond is outside of the final payment period. Those are all regular refundable deposits. However, you do have the option to book what we sometimes call a snap fare, and your consultant can look at these for you. And that is a non-refundable deposit. If you so choose to do so, you can pay a non-refundable deposit and the fare is slightly lower. So we give you a price break on the fare for your commitment on the non-refundable deposit. Everyone has their preferences. I know a lot of folks will prefer the assurance of having the refundable deposit up until the final payment. But there are some out there who say, hey, yeah, sure, I like the idea of this price. I know I'm going to go, so I'll take the non-refundable. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of a
perfect. And again, as Tom said many times, your Expedia Cruises consultant can help guide you to what is the best for you. So if there's somebody out there who really says, you know what, I got to get away in January 2022, is there still space for some of your sailings?
Yeah, for sure. January 2022. So that's really when we're sailing warm weather. You'll find us sailing Hawaii. You'll find us sailing Panama Canal, Mexico, and Caribbean. So yeah, we do have availability. So if you'd like to join us, that would be fantastic. Again, speak with your consultant, because we just want to make sure you're prepared, because we now have things like our Navigator app on board that allows you to do a lot of your pre-boarding and documentation that you would typically have to fill out on an online document. You do it all in the app now, so they can help you get set up with the app or get you ready for these sailings if it's coming up in the next few months. So yeah, we'd love to have you on board for one of these warm. And I know there's a lot of snowbirds watching this evening. If you want to get back out there to your snowbirding, it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, and it is comfort level. If people want to get away, there is space, and if you feel more comfortable planning for further out. So you did talk about 2022 and 2023. So how far out do you have your bookings available for?
Right now we have. So we release our cruises in terms of the deployment. So we'll announce all of the Alaska for a certain year, or all of the Europe, and we gradually fill in the year like that. So right now we have everything available through the spring, kind of March, April of 2023, and we just launched our Alaska 2023. We're expecting to launch our Europe 2023 very, very soon. In Canada, New England 2023, these are all the summer 2023 products. And then, yeah, a little bit further down the road, we'll be announcing, can't believe I'm already going to say 2024, but it'll be the 23 into 24 exotics, like some of the things we've talked about through the winter months.
Well, and what I think everybody has to keep in mind is we lost 2020 and we pretty well lost 2021. So we have 2 years worth of passengers going to be booking. So there is going to be a race for space.
Oh,
A question that we also got is the capacity. Right now, when you're sailing, what is the capacity on your ships? Are you going full?
It varies. We're not going full, so it really does vary. There's no magic number that we're working to. We're obviously kind of keeping a threshold, and we've got the kind of a throttle there, so we can keep capacity down. But there's no, I can't really give you a 50%, 60%, 80%. It can be around all of those numbers, and as we gradually return to sail, that may vary from cruise to cruise as we gradually ramp up. So yeah, no magic number, but we are definitely sailing with lower capacities than we had before. If you're wondering what the experience is like, you will notice if you're sailing soon in the short term when you're on board, you see slightly fewer people around, and that's the same for all cruise lines who are now beginning to restart their operations.
Okay. One more question, Tom. Vaccination policy. Do you require your passengers and are your crew vaccinated?
Yes, 100% vaccinated. Our crew are vaccinated. We do require vaccinations. Again, all of the protocols and requirements really are only being in place as required. Currently, you only see it applying to cruises through January 31. However, it is very likely that part of the requirement will continue. I don't see, personally, this is my own opinion, why that part will be lifted. I don't think it will be. I don't think anyone in the industry or cruisers would assume that would change. But right now, I can only confirm that requirement through the end of January 31. I believe in the next month or so, we're going to then roll out the requirements for the rest of 2022. But as it stands now, if you're coming on board right now, between now and end of January, we do require vaccinations, and for us is that fully vaccinated is either 2-dose Pfizer, 2-dose Moderna, or a mix of Pfizer, Moderna, the mRNAs, so a full mix of the mRNAs, or a full AstraZeneca, 2 doses of AstraZeneca. Unfortunately, at this time, Holland America and many other cruise lines, all of us following the CDC framework, we do not recognize the mix of 1-dose AstraZeneca, 1-dose Pfizer, or 1-dose AstraZeneca, 1-dose Moderna. Currently, although in Canada that meets the requirements and is recommended currently, as far as cruising and the CDC, who we work in accordance with, that mix is not considered fully vaccinated. So whether that changes down the road, I cannot speculate. Perhaps it will, I'm not sure. But for now, full mRNAs or full AstraZeneca is fully vaccinated for us.
Okay, all right. And again, you know what, this whole situation, it changes from day to day, from week to week. Mixed vaccines are being recognized outside of North America because the CDC does not rule that. So again, another reason to call and contact your Expedia Cruises consultants so that we can help you navigate all of this. In the chat, you will see some links. We've got some exciting things happening. Next week, our travel talk will be with Azamara Cruises, and we are also doing our World Explorer events on October 5th, 6th, and 7th. There's going to be a number of different cruise lines coming and giving some presentations similar to this, a couple in the evening, and also one day we're having them kind of in midday. So I do want to thank you all for joining us. If you are interested in travel, whether it's now or later, contact us. Let us find the right cruise for you. We thank you for your past travels. We thank you for your future travels, and we look forward to helping you plan your next dream vacation. Tom, thank you again for a wonderful presentation and showing us places in the world that is going to be on most of our bucket lists.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Thanks
Lisa.
so
much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.